racing. You wanted the best. You got him for a breast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt. The World of Outlaws.
It's a lovely sunny day here outside Austin, Texas at the Circuit of the Americas for the third round of the Pacific Majors Division. the international division. Sorry, my name is Reese Gardner here on V8's Online, and joining me once again, Cameron Dance. Cam, it's time for the Sportscar Showdown. 2 hours at the Circuit of the Americas in the IMSA cars.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be quite the interesting race. We've gone from sort of WEC style multi-class to suddenly the complete opposite of IMSA, where you've got the Corvette C7 Daytona prototype and the GTE cars and also the GT3 cars. So going to be very, very interesting to see how it goes. And looking at the practice times over the week, it's actually been quite close between everybody.
Yeah, certainly is. Of course, pre-qualifying was what decides the grid for this particular round of the majors. Currently on top in the practice session, though, Griffin Gardner on a 58.3, 7/10 ahead of Jake Fox. That is the top two in Daytona prototype. Scott Larnack is top in GTE with Alexander Sheridan 9/10 behind him. And in the GT3 standings, we have Benjamin Hackerson leading Jason Martin by 2/10. So a reasonably sized field tonight, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes, because we've actually got quite the battle up the top of the championship between Christopher Norton and John King for the International Pro title. They're both on 692 points, which, come the end of this race, that may look different.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, both in totally different classes, so should they both win their class, they'll end up still on tied points, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens, as obviously 2 hours isn't a normal sprint race. You've kind of got to more or less treat it a bit like an endurance race, but at the same time have that sprint race mentality at the same time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They've also got to be careful of off tracks here. It's a 42 incident limit here with one fast repair, and it's very sunny out there, mostly cloudy with 28 degrees Celsius air temperature, 33 Celsius track temp. Afternoon conditions, southeasterly winds at 11 kilometers an hour with a relative humidity of 85%. And that incident limit around here is certainly going to play havoc with a few drivers, Cam.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this track is kind of renowned for having off tracks be quite severe. It's somewhat similar to the way that Spa is, in that you don't have to go very far off track to get a incident. So these guys are going to have to be very, very careful, especially through the likes of the chicanes and those fast sweeping corners where you try to maximize your corner speed. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out with the least amount of incidents and who possibly gets DQ'd from going off track one too many times.
Yeah, the multi-class factor really factors into this as well. The fact that you need to really be careful when lapping GTs. But it is interesting, though, because we've just come from the broadcast of the Oceanic Endurance Championship, which is more European-style multi-class racing, and the prototypes have quite a big advantage over the GTs in terms of pace. Not so here. It's only 4 seconds separating the Daytona prototypes and the GTEs, and then it's only another 6 seconds back to GT3s. So it's not a huge amount of difference, and of course these Daytona prototypes, they don't have the advantage of an extra 500 horsepower of electric energy to deploy on the exits of corners. So some of these guys are going to have to be really careful when lapping cars, and on the way through fast corners, the DPs are going to have to be careful as well, because they don't have as much downforce. They actually rely on mechanical grip quite a bit for a prototype race car.
Yeah, they're a little bit of an interesting race car. They've got obviously a bit of aero, but they mainly rely on mechanical grip, as you say, with the way the chassis has been designed and that sort of stuff. So it's going to be interesting, and I think the main places we're going to see problems possibly happening are braking zones, because the GTEs and the prototypes aren't actually all that different in terms of braking zone distances. So going to be very, very interesting to see who actually ends up possibly getting damage or being involved in incidents around that sort of area off the corner.
Yeah, certainly. Well, we're in the race session now with the grid on screen, and Daniel Benefield will be starting from position number 1 in the Daytona prototype class. Griffin Gardner alongside him in second. Dwayne Burns in third, with Jake Fox in fourth. Shane Bowen starting fifth. Sixth, Christian Hinton. Brett Loxton and Robert Northway round out your Daytona prototype field. Starting on pole position in GTE, you have Christopher Norton, Blake Neck, alongside him, Scott Larnack, Dean Mole, Alexander Sheridan, Adam McLeod, and Gavin Barber rounding out that GTE field. And then the GT3s, Audi and Mercedes. Benjamin Hackerson starting on pole with Jason Martin in second, John King third, Trevor Mack in fourth, and they are away on a standing start here. Daytona prototypes are away. Looks like Griffin Gardner got the jump on Daniel Benefield, but Benefield has the inside for turn 1. Now there's going to be a bit of jostling back in the pack because remember the Daytona prototypes, they don't have tire warmers, so the GTEs are really catching up to them in the corners at the moment. You can see Christopher Norton really monstering the back of Jake Fox. Blake Neck trying to get a leg up on Christopher Norton, but it's not quite working.
No, it isn't. Although the draft
hang on a minute.
Close there too, running into the back of Norton there, but as they come onto this big back straight, he should be able to have a bit of a draft to be able to get possibly by in the braking zone if he does have that speed advantage with less swing on that Ford GT.
Yeah, certainly. It looks like that run onto the back stretch was very poor for Blake Neck, but looking at Brett Loxton and Robert Northway having a bit of a battle. They were going side by side. Oh, we got a GT around. GT3. It looks like one of the Audis. Looks like it was Jason Martin that went around. He ended up getting caught up in quite a bit of a gaggle of GT3s there. Looks like he was just trying to exit, and then another car was there, so it's not the best start for Jason Martin, who started in second. But now we're seeing the field really spacing out.
Yeah, everybody's starting to find their feet, warm their tyres up a little bit, and start to get into a bit of a rhythm and find out where they stand as far as pace. Obviously, this race is going to require a pit stop, so a lot of these guys are going to have to take tyres and fuel. I don't think anybody's going to try double stint tyres, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yes, indeed. Looks like the Daytona prototype field's mostly spaced out. The battle, as we said before, is for the last 2 positions between Jake Fox and Brett Loxton. Looking like Fox had a little bit of a run coming out of the S's. He's having a look at the hairpin, and looks like Loxton is just going to let him go.
Yeah, it was looking like Brett just let Jake by quite easily there. Didn't put up any sort of fight, and just seemed to let him go, which was quite interesting.
Benefield and Gardner closing up a little bit at the front there. Of course, 2 Performance Sim Sports drivers recently came off the Oceanic Endurance Championship with luck on opposite ends of the spectrum, both of them. Looks like they're just running line astern at the front, keeping it nice and controlled. Meanwhile, looks like Loxton's gotten back through. So I'm not quite sure what's going on between Fox and Loxton.
Yeah, it just looked like Fox came off the back straight and just locked a rear tyre or something and just got a little bit too loose, and it was going to allow Loxton to get back by. So good little battle we've got here for what appears to be about 6th and 7th position in the Daytona Prototype class.
Yes, indeed. And the battle just behind them for the lead in GTE is just as interesting. Blake Neck took quite a bit of curb there at turn 1. Noticed his car bounced up in the air quite a bit. Seems to me like Christopher Norton has the measure in this early part of the circuit, but Neck seems to get him back in the second half.
Yeah, possibly Nick struggling with possibly a little bit of a high-speed understeer compared to Norton.
You can see Blake's going very hard into that hairpin, and it's sort of killing his exit onto the back stretch, but once they actually get up to speed, the gap sort of stays consistent. If anything, it closes up by just a bit. And you can see Neck's really got his car set up for these point and shoot segments in the latter part of the lap. It's quite interesting actually, because we have sort of two diametrically opposed bits of racetrack here at COTA. First sector is very flowing with plenty of elevation change. The second half is very stop-start, very sharp corners. So it's interesting to see how people set up their cars to cope with that. I'm just going to go to a replay of the start, presented, of course, by CPR Kart and Sim Parts. So Benefield was the loser from that start because Gardner, it seemed, got a bit of a jump. But then, of course, Benefield had the inside line. You saw the front of the GTE field and the rear of the Daytona Prototype field getting into each other a little bit, coming through that first turn. Also, a couple of GTEs falling behind the GT3s. So we go back live, and that GTE battle is still raging on. Going to see that Blake Neck had the title line that time by, but Norton has more of the traction. You can see Neck now in the draft. He's starting to creep back up.
Just doesn't quite seem to have the straight line speed that Norton does. Possibly Nick's running a little bit more wing to help him through this more technical section of the racetrack, possibly.
Yeah, most likely. You can see he's right on the back of Norton now through this slow, twisty section. Very awkward set of turns, and they take quite a bit of work to get through correctly. Oh, Norton running a little bit wide in the second last turn. That's allowed Neck to come back up to the back of him again. The issue is, once again, Norton's just able to get a tiny bit of a better run out of the corner. But it's only about halfway down the straights that Neck seems to gain something back.
Yeah, and that's probably due to the draft starting to kick in. So if Blake can work on his exits a little bit better, then he might be able to take advantage and sort of work around the setup and be able to possibly get his nose on the inside or make a move on Norton at some stage.
Yeah, well, his main the main challenge for Neck right now is to get a good exit out of the hairpin. Concentrate all of his effort on that, and then maybe he'll be able to get it done at the end of the straight. Having said that, he's lost out a bit from his exit from the S's. See how they get out of here this time. More of the same, really.
Yeah, it is quite even, actually.
Tell you what, just behind them, the battle for third and fourth is starting to form up. Dean Moll and Scott Larnack. For positions 1 and 2, it's Ford v Ford. For third and fourth, it's Ferrari versus Ferrari. Other than that, looks to me as though, once again, Neck losing out. Just slightly coming off the corner. He really gets that run in those last couple of corners of the track. You see Norton, Norton's starting to run wide. Neck. I think he's sensing that Norton is maybe starting to come unstuck slightly. That's kind of what he needs. Just push forward and try and get that lead by pressuring Norton into a mistake.
Yeah, that's probably the only way he's going to be able to do it at this stage. I mean, unless he tries and figures out where he can possibly try and make up to... Oh, here we go. As Norton's run quite wide after locking up, so Neck's going to be right on Norton here, and he's going to be right in the draft.
Yeah, Norton got the traction briefly on the outside, but it looks like Neck is going to drop alongside here. Make the move. Remember, this is for the lead in GTE, and Norton has no choice but to let Blake go through.
It doesn't look like Norton actually did lock the rears up a little bit there as well on the end of the back straight, so quite actually lucky to actually hold on to that.
Yeah, certainly. A little bit of oversteer from Blake coming through that hairpin. As we go on board with Scott Larnack as he follows Dean Moll. And Circuit of the Americas, Cam, it's one of those circuits that, like, it was built for Formula One, right? And the trend that you seem to see with a lot of the current crop of Formula One circuits, as we see a little bit of a run being had here. Moll getting a bit crossed up in the last turn, so we're going to see a move here. It's interesting how circuits like this fare with cars like GTE cars that have less aerodynamic grip and you know, are a bit slower, heavier, more based on mechanical grip than anything else.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and the car does tend to slide around a little bit more. You're almost driving it as if you're four-wheel drifting across the track, more or less, from corner to corner. So it's a little bit of a black art to get in the car to not only be able to go through the corner as quick, but also set the car up to go through the corner quick enough. So yeah, it's quite interesting to watch how these guys get around the track and also to actually drive around it in a GT car and see what it's actually like.
Meanwhile, Hinton and Burns having a fight through this long sweeping right-hander, multi-apex. ostensibly modelled after Istanbul Park's Turn 8.
Does look like Hinton's actually carrying a little bit of left front damage on that splitter of his, so could be down on straight line speed a little bit here, which isn't going to be playing into his favour too much.
No, certainly not. Might not help his aerodynamic stability through this opening section of the circuit either. Hinton has made up 2 positions from where he started, so it's a good run that he's got so far. Of course, where he gained, Jake Fox lost out. You can see, like, in the Daytona prototype, those S's are incredibly awkward. It's difficult around this circuit because you have to get the car set up in such a way that it turns in really, really well. Because you want that front grip on turn-in, and you want to carry that grip through those long turns. At the same time, you don't want it too oversteery because there's an awful lot of acceleration zones on this track that are incredibly crucial. That's the big challenge that the drivers have had, and the Daytona prototype is an unwieldy beast at the best of times, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm obviously going to be racing in the Pacific region of this race, so in the prototype, and it's been quite interesting because, as you said, you got to make sure that the car is going to be able to get through all that high speed sort of stuff and use the downforce properly so that it can rotate, but you also want it so the rear end's got enough stability so that you can get the power down quick enough and also not have it oversteer too much on you. And with it also being a 2-hour race, you're going to be going through an entire fuel tank, so you want to make sure it's also stable enough to go the distance as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Very interesting dilemma that you have with any car around this track, especially the Daytona prototype that is in this generation that you see on iRacing. Anyway, it's a bit of a weird mix of full purpose-built prototype and the more, I don't know how you describe the original Daytona prototypes from Grand Am. They're strange ones. They're sort of built to resemble Group C cars more than anything. Heavier, you know, space frame, tube frame. But then they got those huge diffusers to sort of bring them up to date with the LMP2 cars that were brought in after Grand Am merged with the American Le Mans series to create the what we currently know as the WeatherTech Sportscar Championship. So these cars are from a very weird time in American endurance racing. Meanwhile, oh, sorry, Cam, go on.
I was just going to say, yeah, they're quite a bit of an interesting car on how they've been designed and around the time that they were designed as well. And yeah, it's quite difficult to almost say what it more or less resembles, to be exact.
Yeah, it's a Frankenstein's monster of prototype race cars, I suppose. Meanwhile, looks like Shane Bowen is catching up to the back of this battle between Burns and Hinton. He sort of kept pace with them on the last lap, but at the same time, he's just keeping them in his sights. And that could really help him.
Yeah, it would appear most of the drivers in the Daytona prototype class are all actually quite even as far as pace goes, so doesn't seem to be a whole lot of gap differential between them.
Yes, Jonathan Ben has just gone in for a pit stop. He's come out. It's a bit strange. Actually, it looks like he suffered a spin earlier on in the last lap, in the middle of the S's. Just lost it into the wall. Gonna get a CPR Kart and Sim Parts replay of that on his lap 8 at the start of it, and yeah, looks like he just got on the brakes at the wrong time and upset the balance of the car, and into that barrier he went. So he's gone and gotten that repaired, used up his fast repair, and away he goes once again. Back live once again. Gary LaViolette just let by Griffin Gardner. Looks like the gap between the top two has extended a fair bit, out to nearly 5 seconds now.
Yeah, Benefield seems to have pulled quite a gap, even though the pace differential between himself and Griffin is actually very, very similar. Not even a tenth separating the two of them. So not quite sure what's happened in the last lap or so.
It's probably just consistency on Benefield's part, I guess.
Yeah, that would probably be the only real explanation from what I can see looking at the lap times over the course of this race so far.
Meanwhile, Blake Neck and Christopher Norton, this battle has not let up in the last few laps. Norton's still keeping Neck honest, but it seems like Blake has got the measure of him so far.
Yeah, Blake's got some good pace now that he's managed to get a bit of clean air. Possibly being behind Norton was just hampering him, that it was giving him a little bit too much dirty air towards that aero, so he wasn't quite able to get the car to hook up as well as he wished. So now he's in clean air, he's able to drive the car as he should be able to.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, oh, looks like Larnack got by... Oh, yes, of course, Larnack got by Mole. My memory is playing tricks on me. It has been a very long day here at V8's Online. Been live quite a bit this weekend with Oceanic Endurance Championship and this. Seems like the gap between Norton and Neck is staying consistent right now. You gotta remember, Cam, this is a 2-hour race, so these guys, they don't want to go too hard too early. I think for the time being, what everybody's doing is just trying to keep a consistent pace, stay out of trouble. And then the racing may ramp up in intensity in the last half hour or so.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe it, as everybody's just trying to more or less find their place on track and obviously make sure that they don't rack up too many incidents this early on before the final hour where they can really start to push it.
Well, Griffin Gardner is looking pretty quick relative to Daniel Benefield right now. Of course, these guys are coming up to traffic. Oh, goodness me. Okay, so Griffin kept that drift going a bit longer than I was expecting him to.
Yeah, he actually did quite a good job at actually holding that drift for as long as he did. Usually,
Oh, he's doing it again.
usually the DP doesn't tend to like that sort of thing. It usually likes to let go, and then depending on how much it lets go, it does tend to bite back and then send you back the other way. So he's controlling that car quite well.
Is he doing it on purpose? I could swear I can see him sliding the car a little bit in every single turn. Most of them, anyway. He has got a little bit of damage to the front, so something's obviously happened to him at some point.
Yeah, I think he's possibly just hit one of the sausage curbs through the chicane a little bit too much, and it's ended up just bending that fiberglass front end a little bit too much.
Yeah, whatever happened to him, it happened to him a few laps ago, so he's been dealing with it for some time.
His pace isn't suffering too much from it, though, which is quite interesting to see.
Indeed it is. Actually, now that you mention it, Daniel Benefield has a bit of damage to his front as well, so the sausage curbs are catching out a couple of the prototype drivers.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to actually clip those sausage curbs and actually take a little bit too much curb. I know I've done it a few times in practice this weekend. Because of the way that you want to get through there so quick and also use as much of the racetrack as possible, it is quite easy to turn in a little bit too early and just clip the sausage curb a little bit too much and damage your front end.
I just had a flick through the Daytona prototype field, and it seems that the only one with no damage at all is Dwayne Burns. So props to you, Dwayne, for keeping it clean. Looks to me like he's the only one with 0 incidents as well. So we're going on board at the moment with Christian Hinton as he makes his way through the GT traffic. That is Daniel Stevens going off the track and letting him go. He's still not... I mean, he's fallen off the back of Burns at a slow rate, but they're still managing to keep with each other. Meanwhile, it looks like after passing Dean Moll, Scott Larnack has been unleashed, and he's actually catching up to Christopher Norton, Cam.
Yeah, Larnack's been doing actually quite good times. He's been doing consistent 203s, whereas Norton's been doing more 203s, and then he's done a few 204s around. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly Larnack's going to be able to catch up to Norton.
Yes, indeed. Make it a three-way battle for the lead of GTE. Thinking about it, actually, Blake Neck facing a bit of traffic. That was Gary LaViolette. Looks like he's trying his best to stay out of the way of the GTEs. Issue is that whenever there's traffic out on track, you as a faster class car generally oh dear, hang on a minute. That's certainly not what what you want to have happen. Doesn't matter what class you're in. A little bit looks to me like LaViolet went a little bit too hot into the corner, and so had to slow up a bit on the exit. Oh, okay, that's not good. Wow, alright. So the floor of that car will not be in good shape from Scott Larnack. Certainly not what you want to see.
Yeah, he just took a little bit too much of that curb on the left-hand side, and it just unsettled the car quite easily, so he probably will have quite a bit of damage to that bodywork.
Yeah, and if you take a look, he actually he actually slid right over another sausage curb. So he's probably torn up the floor of that Ferrari, something bad.
Yeah, he's probably actually done quite a bit of damage. He's obviously still got a fast repair, so it won't affect him too bad overall, but he's definitely going to be lacking a bit of pace now with that damage.
Well, as we go back live, that's really put paid to Scott Larnack's pursuit of the GTE top two, who have basically stayed exactly the same since we last checked in on them. Blake Neck continuing to lead from Christopher Norton. The last GTE car on the lead lap that Daniel Benefield is coming up to at the moment, the leader, Benjamin Hackerson. He's been doing very well out there in the front of the GT3 field. Started in the lead, has stayed in the lead, and is consistently running very quick times relative to his competitors.
Yeah, he's been doing quite decent times compared to what everybody else is, so if he keeps going the way he is, he probably will and should win this race.
Yeah, looking back through... Oh, hang on a minute. Jake Fox and Shane Bowen. It's looking like these guys have gotten together, as have Hinton and Burns. They're all picking their way through the GT3 traffic right now. And of course, you can see that that's created a bit of an ebb and flow between these guys. So Jake Fox, in the midst of all of that, has made his way past Shane Bowen. Fox, of course, showing a very big battle scar on the left front quarter of his car. Oh, this isn't going to work out too well. They're coming up to GT3 in the middle of the S's. This is the problem that that these guys face. They can't exactly throw it up the inside or put a move on the GTs here because they stand too much of a chance of crashing them out. So this battle between Jason Martin and John King intersects with the battle between Fox and Bowen. Looks like Fox has managed to get by in due course. What about Bowen? Is he going to be able to get by King before the braking zone? Looks like yes. Oh, maybe. Of course, John King with that Mercedes ABS has not done well, and oh, hang on a minute. Griffin Gardner's stopped. Wondering what that's for. That's very strange.
Yeah, he's literally just pulled it over. Maybe his screens have gone blank. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, maybe. That or a stick and brake pedal? I don't know. That's very weird. Well, he's escaped back to the pits.
Yeah, so that's very bizarre as to what's going on there.
Yeah. Well, either way, Jason Martin and John King, in the midst of their battle, they've changed their positions. And that started all the way back at the start of the last sector when Bowen went to pass King. Looked like King overshot the hairpin. And King overshoots once again. So King and Martin. King, of course, joint leader of the International Pro standings. And Jason Martin, known more for his running in oval racing. He's one of the foremost Australian competitors on the oval racing scene in the stock car sphere. Trying his hand at GT3. Running in third place, so no slouch. Issue, of course, being that he's carrying a little bit of damage, so it's not going to help his pace much, especially in a car like the Audi R8, which tends to prefer smooth tracks, doesn't like curbs, and can get upset very easily. As we see Griffin Gardner manually disconnecting from the server, so looks like that might be our first retirement. Turns out that he may be having a bit of a sickness issue, Griffin Gardner, so get well soon. Yeah,
that's not quite ideal, and it's never really a pleasant state to be in when you're doing something such as driving a race car, for example.
Yeah, certainly not. Driving a virtual race car quick is a hard enough task as it is on its own, but add being sick on top of that, not very nice. So that promotes Dwayne Burns to second. Hinton not too far behind in third, and it looks like Jake Fox has left Shane Bowen behind in terms of fourth place in the Daytona prototype class. Meanwhile, back in GTE in the battle for third, it's going to be Larnack versus Mole round 2 at this stage, the way things are going. Larnack catching Mole.
Well, in the process of also recovering from that spin as well, and he's doing it at quite a quick rate as well.
Yes, indeed. It's gradually chipping away, I'd say, at least 3/10 a lap on average. So Larnack definitely with the pace advantage here as they're making their way through a bit of GT3 traffic in the form of Rory Boyd. Of course, Boyd running in 6th place in GT3 as it stands. Larnack ends up getting by, so question is, if he manages to get by Mole, and he certainly had an easier time of it the first time round, will he be able to hold on to it? Because it seems like COTA is a track that really breeds mistakes when you're lapping on your own.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting track. It's very wide and it's very open, so when you're lapping on your own, it is quite easy to run wide and make mistakes and that sort of thing where you're not sort of having to worry too much about keeping a line or that sort of thing.
Meanwhile, Hinton, Fox, and Bowen, these are the three guys that we've been focusing on and off throughout the race, and they seem to be getting a bit closer as Bowen goes into the pits. So he's the first of our Daytona prototype runners to pit, under regular circumstances at least.
Yeah,
it looks like following him in Northway.
Yeah, if memory serves me correctly, a Daytona prototype, we usually go for about roughly 40 to just over 40 minutes on a full tank at most tracks. So possibly we'll see the DPs do 2 stops, maybe.
Yeah, would be interesting. Meanwhile, Scott Larnack continuing to chase down Dean Mole here. So it'll be second try here for Larnack to see if he can hold on to third position in GTE. I'm going to review his lap times. 2:04.3 and then a 2:04.3 this time by. So he is not running as quick as Neck and Norton right now. I get the feeling that chasing down second and first may be out of Larnack's reach for now, especially with the damage that he has on that car at the moment, but third seems like a possibility right now.
Yes, pace at the moment compared to the leaders doesn't look like it's all that amazing, so he may possibly end up having to settle for third in the end. If he can up that pace later in the race, he might stand a chance of possibly getting into second, but I don't think he'll get into the lead anytime soon.
Yeah, there we go. Daniel Stevens letting Larnack and Mole by. Of course, we should probably mention that Mole is one of the few people in the field that is not from the Australia-New Zealand region in this race. We have 4 drivers not of Australia NZ. First is Mole, of course, Club Indiana. We got Trevor Mack from Ohio, Benjamin Hackison from the UK, and John King, who lives in Asia.
And those guys in America and the UK, it's not necessarily that amazing of a time. In America, I know it's going to be very early in the morning, and over in the UK, it would be about 7 a.m., well, quarter to 8 a.m. at the moment. So pretty committed to be waking up at the times they do to have a go at racing this.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, the main reason that that the majors has these time slots for different parts of the world is so that everyone gets a chance to race. And these guys from different parts of the world, obviously they are doing this time slot because for whatever reason they are not able to make the time slot in their own region. So it really shows commitment when, you know, it shows how much they want to actually race in this series and compete for the Mario Andretti Trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other benefit is that you've also got the ability to do what they call a guest drive, where you can still score points even though you're not racing in your region. So you're not entirely losing out if you don't make the race that for your region, more or less.
Yes, indeed. Larnack is still creeping up to the back of Dean Mole here. Looks like they've actually gotten some pace back relative to the top two in GTE. So they both did times in the 203s in the last lap. Larnack having a little bit of a look. More of a direct line to the apex. Just letting Mole know that he's there.
Or just about touching him in the process as well.
Yeah, right. That's very spirited entry from Larnack. He's doing it again here. Trying to get that late apex, early throttle. Unfortunately, it's a bit difficult to do in that section of the track. And Larnack being very liberal with the track limits as well in some places. So you can tell he really wants this third position. They both do 204s on that lap. Well, he's got a bit of a run, hasn't he? Oh, careful, guys. Those sausage curbs look so close.
It looks so inviting to hit either, but you know if you hit it, it's going to do something not ideal to the car.
Certainly not. And what you just saw there was a bit of line experimentation from those drivers. Larnack goes for the move. It looks like Mole just backed out of the throttle a little bit just to let him go. So Scott Larnack back through into third place. But Mole has a bit of a run down the straight here. Yeah, Larnack's going defensive.
I was just going to say that wider entry to the hairpin is actually going to help Mole at the end of the straightaway because he's going to have more straight line speed, but he didn't quite get the overtake done there.
There we go on corner exit. Larnack is just leaving Mole in the dust, I suppose. Got very nice traction out of there. They've got a Daytona prototype coming up to them as well. That's yes, Daniel Benefield there. Yes.
So they'll sort of have to think about this a little bit in that they don't want to lose too much time when Benefield goes by, but they also don't want to cause an incident. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage this.
Benefield's got a bit of a run on Mole. Looks like he's going to get by here. Issue is, will he get held up behind Larnack at all? Seems like the similarity in mechanical grip between the cars means that Benefield actually isn't moving relative to either of those GTEs through that entire section of the track. As Dwayne Burns jumps in the pits. After about 48 minutes of racing. That looks like a fairly routine stop from Burns for fuel and tyres. So we'll be seeing a few more Daytona prototype pit stops in the next few laps, I would imagine.
Yeah, that would probably be about right with the way the fuel burn and the fuel tank size is for these cars.
According to our director Jay Kennedy's Joel Real Timing readout, Christopher Norton is currently on 32 incidents. So that's a little bit more than you probably would like for before the halfway point in a 2-hour race.
Yeah, you'd start to get a little bit nervous, more or less, on the fact that you've got that many incidents left to play with.
Yeah, remember the incident limit is 42 for this race, so to have 32 incidents, only 10 left to play with. Around a track like Coda, you can't really afford to have that kind of limitation imposed on you.
No, not really, especially when you need to push as hard as you do.
Taking a look back in the GT3 field, meanwhile, looks as though Trevor Mack is coming under some pressure from Jason Martin, who, in spite of his damage, is still running very competitive times. Actually, looking at the lap time readouts, he was nearly 0.8 faster than the GT3 leader on that last lap. It was the fastest lap of the race for him last lap, so Jason Martin on a bit of a charge here. So let's have a look at exactly where he gets his pace from. Making their way past some lap traffic. Jonathan Ben, once again. .257 kilometers an hour down the back straight for Trevor Mack. Martin was able to match him quite a bit.
Yeah, obviously that draft would have helped a little bit, and probably running a little bit less wing than that Mercedes as well, so gonna be interesting. He's looking pretty close at the moment, so Mack's probably going to have his hands full very shortly.
Yeah, I'll be looking in that mirror quite a bit at that Fremantle Dockers liveried Audi. We didn't quite get on the throttle as well as on previous laps did Trevor. Martin's got the run here. Has Mack lifted? Looks like it. Just backing out of it, no point in getting in a fight this early. And we're seeing our the GTE leader, Blake Neck, coming up on these guys as well. There's Daniel Benefield in the pits. So Benefield has been able to go about 53, 54 minutes on a full tank of fuel here.
Yeah, so it'll be very, very interesting to see how this actually plays out, because with that very few minutes left before the hour mark, it'll be interesting to see whether it's worth actually fuel saving or not.
Yeah, you've got a couple of strategies that you could go for here. Who was the first to pit in the DP class? Was it Shane Bowen? Yeah, yes. Shane. No. As we're seeing Dean Moll right behind Scott Larnack once again. Hasn't let him go, but going back to the Daytona prototype field briefly as they come down this straight. The first Daytona prototype to pit did so at about the 43-minute mark as Larnack. That's quite interesting to see there. Dean Moll going back by. I was not expecting that. I thought with the pace that Larnack had been showing recently, he would have been able to keep up with Moll. Gap Moll a little bit.
Yeah, not sure what exactly has gone on by, but he's actually, Larnack broke quite early at the end of the back straight there, so yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe
he's trying to fuel save.
The GTE cars can go for quite some time. I know they can go for pretty much an hour, just over an hour on fuel, so probably wouldn't really need to be much.
Yeah, no need to fuel save.
That class, yeah.
Well, we're looking at Benjamin Hackerson right now, the GT3 leader, or was before he jumped in. So he's going to be taking fuel and tyres. Benefield behind Hinton, who goes into the pits. And so that's the Daytona prototype lead resumed for Daniel Benefield. Interestingly, Hackerson is still stopped, so not too sure what's going on there.
Yeah, I think he was taking tyres.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have taken that long, surely. 1 minute and 1 second, and how long does a pit stop usually take in GT3 is my question.
Well, tyres is about 20 seconds on its own, so...
and they do fuel and tyres separately.
Yeah, so...
Very odd. Well, if that's what a regular GT3 pit stop looks like, then obviously I need to do my research. Why start now, indeed, Jay? Go back to what I was saying before, Cam, about the GT3 the Daytona prototype pit stops. First DP pitting at about 43 minutes in. Race is 120 minutes. Is he just trying to evenly space it out? Evenly space it out in terms of pit stops, and the guys that are pitting later must be banking on, you know, a splash and dash or something to that effect.
Yeah, possibly.
You know that you can't make it on one stop, so if you gotta do 2 stops, you might as well break it up evenly. But I don't know, would you lose less overall time if you decide to go for a long stop in the middle and then a little splash and dash at the end?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, because it also, you then have to think about how much time you're going to lose fuel saving over traversing pit lane and then stopping as well.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's very weird. Well, Brett Loxton and Jake Fox are the drivers you're looking at right now, they're looking very close, and Loxton is looking very unsettled. He's going back into the pits. Or, this is first stop, sorry. Getting my liveries confused, Cam. Hasn't happened for a while. So, that makes Brett Loxton the last KRF car to jump into the pits as we take a look at Dean Moll and Scott Larnack once again. These guys have been basically inseparable.
Yeah, and Moll's been good for the past few laps as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, Moll's impressed me in these last few laps. I initially didn't think that he would have the pace to match Larnack, but for some reason he's really picked up the pace.
Yeah, possibly Larnack has used the tyres up a little bit too much. I'm not entirely sure, but it's very strange that he suddenly dropped off the way he has after that spin.
Tell you what, Larnack's still hungry though. He's still going straight for those apexes. To tell you the truth, he was... wow. Yeah, have a look at the difference between them on the last lap. Larnack was nearly a full second faster.
Yeah, he was actually,
So what's going on between these guys? It's very intriguing. Making their way past Gary LaViolette right now. This is not going to help either of them. But looks like worked out relatively evenly for all three of those drivers.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what exactly Moll and Larnack are trying to achieve. I'm not sure if they're trying to work together or Larnack's possibly fuel saving or what the story is, but it's an interesting bit of racecraft going on.
Yeah, certainly. Have a look at Larnack. He's moving around in Moll's mirrors. As we've just reached past the halfway point of this race. Reminder, if you've recently joined us, you are watching the international division of the Majors Series. This is the Sportscar Showdown at the Circuit of the Americas. Scott Larnack battling with Dean Moll in GTE is really heating up now. As Larnack has sort of half gone for the move, and Moll has recognized that let him go as he goes into the pits. So is Moll the first GTE driver, to take a pit stop? Norton has already pitted, remember. So
yeah, he did that the lap before, so start to see some GTE cars coming into pit lane and get some fuel and tyres.
we look back once again at Jake Fox and Christian Hinton. Oh, Hinton going very wide. Of course, not much he could do. Rory Boyd had his hands tied as well as on goes Shane Bowen by Rory. Comparing lap times between Jake Fox and Christopher Hinton, Hinton. It's difficult to pick which of them is the faster driver because they have a very a very inconsistent spread of lap times. Seems like in terms of fastest laps, they're actually pretty equal. I was looking at the wrong two drivers there, sorry. Hinton is faster than Fox on pure one-lap pace, it seems.
Yeah, that would be the way it looks at the moment.
But, yeah, for some reason that he's just not able to get a consistent campaign going against Fox right now.
Yeah, that possibly could be due to setup or traffic. I'm not exactly sure, but Fox has obviously got the upper hand over him.
Yes, Fox is going to go, attempt to go around the outside of Benjamin Hackerson. Eventually gets it done. Ooh, a bit of a slide for Dean Mole just up ahead. Also got to remember, Mole's getting used to a car that, once again, has a full tank and colder tyres. I say colder because the GTEs and GT3s use tyre warmers. The Daytona prototypes do not. So when we say cold tyres with the Daytona prototype, we mean cold tyres. Oh, we've got a spinner, Gavin Barber. We just managed to get it recovered. Full sideways, drift spec into the second hairpin.
That's actually quite a good drift through there. Good recovery. So
Yeah.
up and just send it on its way.
Yeah, very good stuff. Also hearing that Christopher Norton is up to 36 incidents. So I wonder if we'll see any disqualifications before the end of this race.
Yeah, we may possibly do. So you'll have to start being a little bit more cautious on how far he puts out of the side of the car.
In the meantime, Daniel Stevens and Rory Boyd, these guys are currently running second and third in GT3. And they're running pretty close as well. They closed up a fair bit after we last saw either of them. They both have yet to pit, I believe, yes. So it'll be interesting to see which of them blinks first. They are the only two cars in GT3 left to take their pit stops. So these guys are playing the long game in this first part of the race. And other than them, Larnack and Barber are the only two cars left to pit out of the entire field. So in terms of the GT field, we're only going to be seeing one pit stop, but the Daytona prototype field is still very much A point of intrigue as we're looking at Jake Fox and Christian Hinton right now, with Shane Bowen looming in the background. These guys are likely going to have to pit one more time in this race.
Or possibly fuel save. We're not entirely sure, but it'll be one of those two for sure.
Seems to me like Hinton has lost a little bit relative to Fox in those last few corners, and now Bowen is right on the back of him here.
Yeah, Bowen's right there. Oh, a little bit sideways from Bowen there, but it was still very, very close.
Yeah, but once again, Hinton seems to have gotten that better exit out of that latter part of the S's. See what Bowen can do here. Evidently not much, as Hinton just gets that nice launch out of the hairpin. But you see there, Bowen using the draft to his advantage, and oh, he's gone very deep into there.
Possibly a little bit too deep, and it's cost him a bit of time, actually.
Yeah. Seems like a very minute amount of time, but little things have big consequences around a track like this. As we see Scott Larnack jumping into the pits. Where's Moll in all of this? Just coming through the second last turn. There we go, Larnack is away. This is close between them. Seems to me, though, like Larnack has the advantage. That was a calculated pit stop by Larnack, Cam. He may have even gone early to try and get a bit of a jump on Moll.
Yeah, possibly.
Shane Bowen and Christian Hinton once again. Seems to be a repeat of what we were seeing on the last lap. Hinton just has the advantage on initial throttle application, but Bowen has him just about everywhere else.
You can definitely see that Bowen's much stronger under brakes as well compared to Hinton.
Yeah. You're seeing once again, he's really... Wow. Yeah, his corner entry is far superior. Problem is, a track like Coda, it's your on throttle that you need to worry about more than anything. So he ends up losing out a bit relative to Hinton.
Yeah, and that's going back to the point we spoke about earlier, in that you want the car to be able to rotate. Just to see Bowen on the wide a bit there, but yeah, you want the car to rotate well, but you need to make sure that you can have it be stable enough so that you get the power down and get the drive off the corner.
Well, they're closer than they've been for a while, so I'm interested to see how this turns out. Oh, Hinton. Bit of a slide. They both run a little wide in the hairpin, but depending on the car, that's probably a better line. Making their way past GT3. That is Rory Boyd.
It's probably as late of a move to
Yeah.
go through there, especially as you want to get, probably.
Yeah, too right. And once again, you see that Hinton is able to get on that throttle nice and easy out of that final SS section. Gain that little bit of time over Bowen that he needs. Tell you what is another battle that I've just seen forming. Gavin Barber versus Adam McLeod. These guys are battling for the last two positions in GTE. Seems to me that Barber had the measure of McLeod on the last lap, but we'll see how well McLeod can hold up. See, they're coming up to GT3 in the form of John King. But they've also got a Daytona prototype pressuring the back of them in the form of Dwayne Burns. So King's going to stay wide a bit here. Oh no, this is a bit dramatic. So Barber had to back out of it. Dwayne Burns to the outside. And that's really closed up McLeod and Barber. They've got their class leader looming up behind them as well.
Looks like McLeod's sort of trying to set himself up for the exit and taking a bit of a wider entry so that he can set up the exit and try and get his best drive possible.
Yeah, well, he's certainly gained a little bit there, and Barber running wide. So that's the thing with Coda. With a lot of new racetracks actually that are built around the world, it's hard to drive consistently around them because the way that they are defined, the way that the racetrack is defined, you don't often have some set sort of marks to hit, as both of these drivers are going to let by their class leader. And so that's what you see, especially in the second last turn. It's an incredibly difficult turn. Can't really pick the right line through it lap after lap after lap. You tend to take it a little bit differently each time. You can see,
especially with Codas, a lot of the corners are actually quite blind, so you've kind of got to do it based on feel rather than markers that you'd usually use around the track.
Tell you what, the Hinton-Bowen battle is closer than it's ever been at that point on the track. Seems like Bowen has actually been able to keep up with Hinton on that exit from the S's. He's actually got a bit of a draft here. We might see him move. Yep, there we go. And Hinton actually got on the brakes early. So that's move done for Shane Bowen. He moves up into 4th overall, 4th in class. Oh, probably not for long if he keeps doing that. Oh, again, he's just losing the rear end slightly. That is not going to help him at all.
No, it's not. He needs to sort of back it off a little bit and just try and preserve that rear end.
Ooh, Christian Hinton.
That was probably as sideways as you want to get in the DP through there. Very lucky not to actually get sent into the fence. As well, actually coming to the pit lane actually for his final stop of the race.
Yep, CPR Kart and Simparts replay of that little moment that Christian Hinton had. And those who are familiar with the Daytona prototype will know exactly the struggle that that Hinton had there. It's a car that doesn't particularly like being driven just over the limit. So Shane Bowen is away now. He's going to come out just ahead of Robert Northway. I'm going to see if Hinton responds here. It looks to me like Hinton pitted on his lap 28. I get the feeling that Hinton might jump in a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, I'd probably say that's what he's going to be doing. Try and do that splash and dash to minimise his time in the pit lane.
Talking about GT3, 7th and 8th is quite close. Gary LaViolette and Jonathan Ben. Of course, these guys are the two last running cars, and Ben not in good shape at all. He's actually got damage again, so he's not having the best run out there, is Jonathan Ben.
No, he isn't, and he's actually had quite a bit of a big incident earlier on. I'm not sure where he had it, but he actually came to the pit lane about a lap ago to fix some damage that he got from an incident earlier on.
Bowen and Northway, meanwhile. Seems like Bowen, of course, this is still his first lap out of the pits, so coming out just behind, just in front of, sorry, Northway, who's had time for his tyres to heat up. It's a bit difficult to stay ahead, but He's getting it done. Northway pitted 4 laps ago. You don't really, in the Daytona prototype class, you don't often hear about the fresh tyres sort of deal when talking about pit stops. Because it's all about letting the tyres come up to temperature over your first couple of laps. So Northway with a bit of an advantage there, but seems like even though he had 3/10 advantage over Shane Bowen on that lap, just not able to get up to the back of him.
Yeah, he just seems to be missing that edge pace-wise, so he can actually gain an advantage and possibly get a move done.
Oh, that's not going to work. Bowen running a little bit wide in the hairpin, but he has gotten the traction down once again. Tell you what, Northway's a real threat here.
Yeah, he actually is. I'm not sure whether Bowen is struggling to get his tyres up temp or what the story is, but he is struggling a little bit, and Northway's actually staying with him quite well, and he's actually possibly going to be able to make a move if he can get the pace.
You can see the Northway was just going for that early apex through the long turn, but Bowen was able to use that late apex to his advantage. Tell you what, this Northway's just he's just chipping away at Bowen lap after lap.
Yeah, that seems to be the case by the looks of it, and that's all Northway needs to do at this stage with not too long left in the race.
You can see Northway looks a lot smoother than Bowen as well through a lot of these turns. Seems like Bowen is having 2, maybe 3 goes at a corner throughout the transit of one, but Northway is keeping things calm and collected at this stage. Oh, that's not good for Bowen. He's run wide.
That's going to allow the door open.
Oh, this is it's incredibly awkward through this section of the track. Wow. Once again, we're back to them being 4 or 5 car lengths apart.
Oh, Northway running quite wide there.
Yeah, a couple of cracks showing in Northway's driving at the moment. Wow. He's really making that lack of track limits work for him at the moment. Might go for a move. Yes. There we go. Oh, he's locked up.
That's very deep.
That's incredibly deep, and it looks like Bowen is going to come back at him here. They're going to go side by side. Oh, Bowen might have to yield. One of them's going to have to yield, and it's going to be Bowen. Oh, but did they make contact there?
I don't think they did, but it was very close. You actually saw Bowen lock a tyre up to actually stop running into the back of Northway there. That was so close.
Sent him a little bit offline as well. So that, we're just getting a CPR cut and SimParts replay of that protracted pass. Robert Northway going up the inside, locking that front left. Bowen had a chance at getting back at him, but was unable to make it work. And of course, two cars going into one corner at Circuit of the Americas rarely ends well. So that's the end of that. As we go back live, we are joined by Bo Albert. G'day, Bo. How are you?
Doing good, Reese. Sounds like you guys are having a bit of fun watching the last 30 minutes of this race, and it's turning out to be quite an interesting one. Northway's not leaving anything on the table, is he?
No, certainly not. He's really gotten good in terms of pace these last couple of laps. So Bowen being left in the dust right now. Northway really making those tyres work for him. Oh, having said that, a little wide in the last turn.
Yeah, he's using every inch of grip he has in those tyres right now, and as he should, he's trying to attack as hard as he can. And of course, the driver in front of him is a long way up the road, which is Dwayne Burns, who is in a bit of a fight of his own with Christian Hinton at the moment. So it won't be another position for Northway in this race, I don't think, unless these two come together, touch wood. But nonetheless, Hinton is under a lot of pressure from Burns, who's in the slipstream heading down this long straight. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can do anything into the braking zone. 11 kilometers an hour wins here, which will be helping just a little bit. But Dwayne just does not look like he has the straight line speed to make any kind of an attempt on Hinton as they dive for the brakes into the tight right left-handed hairpin. Hinton's doing a good job here just to hold him off, and he's fast where he needs to be. He's a little bit slow overall for lap time, but where he needs to be quick to defend that position, he's doing very, very well at the moment.
He certainly is, and a reminder that Hinton is in the middle of a long stint right now, but I think Burns has just come out of the pits. This is his outlap, so it's interesting to see the differences between these two cars. I was talking earlier about, oh goodness me, Hinton, big oversteer moment coming through the second last turn, but I get the feeling that Burns might get by him very soon. He's going to have to wait a little bit longer before those tyres heat up completely, though. Still, Dwayne Burns, Mr. Consistent, no damage on his car. Yep.
Down to the inside, throws it, and there was just complete authority for Dwayne Burns there. Christian Hinton had no say in that whatsoever. Down to the inside, got the car stopped on the apex beautifully, and Dwayne Burns moves himself into position number 3. And if what you're saying is true, and he's on his first flying lap now on new tyres, he's going to have extremely good pace. And we'll see if he can do anything with Jake Fox just 10 seconds up, or 9 seconds up the road. Still 15 laps on the clock. It's not impossible. It's a very large ask, but not impossible. So it all depends on what Dwayne Burns can do. At the rate he's pulling away from Christian Hinton now, maybe there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I certainly think so. The I honestly can't remember whether Burns was battling with Fox before, but it'd be interesting to see how that goes when Fox pits next. Taking a look at his lap times, and he last pitted on lap 27, so he'll be coming to the end of this fuel stint pretty soon. Bit of a splash and dash towards the end. And obviously, Fox will be hoping that that keeps him ahead of Dwayne Burns. So we've still got a bit to work out in the Daytona prototype field here.
Yep, still got to work its way all the way through. And my JRT is just updating, getting to the session. So apologies if I get any information wrong. But nonetheless, we should be in for a pretty good finish with drivers coming towards the ends of stints whilst others going for a bit of an early undercut, which will be really, really good to see how it all pans out in just 26 minutes time. So still a lot to play out. Even though there are some large gaps throughout the field, there is still plenty of positions that could chop and change.
Yeah, certainly. An awful lot of the field is incredibly spaced out right now, but we still have a few battles happening throughout that are a bit closer. So, actually, I'm having a look at Robert Northway. He's currently making his way up to the back of Dean Moll. He's still managing to hold off Shane Bowen here, but looks like he has a little bit of damage to the front left that was not there before.
Yeah, maybe. Of course, these curbs around this circuit are extremely vicious, and you're not wrong. That front left quarter of that C7 is not looking how it came out of a factory. So that's going to be hurting him a lot in straight line speed. And these, DPs, they're a bit of a weird prototype GT1 cross as he gets a little bit squirrely mid-corner and has to fight the Corvette to the max through there. But, these are still relatively high aero-dependent cars when it comes to straight line performance. And you can see that even just through the S's, he's not getting the apexes how he once would, and he's losing a bit of time already, running out a bit further than he would have liked. And all of a sudden, Shane Bowen is really starting to come back into this, and Northway not looking comfortable. He's got it back onto the apexes now, and that's one of the tough things with that first section of track is if you miss that first apex, chances are you're going to miss the next 5.
Yeah, that's the thing with this section. Well, actually, this entire circuit, I suppose, in a way, because rhythm is incredibly important here, and having a car that's able to do exactly what you want it to do at any given moment is the key to being quick around here. Consistency is what you want first and foremost, and as you said, if you miss one apex, you probably miss the next 5, especially in that opening sector. It's a very difficult piece of racetrack, deceptively so, because you think, oh, it's flat. It's, it's just a couple of S-bends. And you also think in that section of the circuit, oh, it's just a couple of hairpins, but have a look at what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert Northway is not doing his front tyres any favours at all, and they were locked all the way to the apex there. Somehow managed to make it through with speed, and Shane Bowen, who was attacking very, very hard as well, who's actually going to be careful to get out of the way of Daniel Benefield, as he does very nicely. So Benefield doing his prototype charge, as he always does. But Northway just managed to pull out a little bit of a margin now, thanks to Bowen getting a bit out of shape with Benefield coming through. But the fact is that Benefield has to get past Northway as well. Of course, Benefield with a massive 1 minute 14 lead at the moment, so he is doing fantastic. But I'm going to assume that's with 1 pit stop still to go for him. But Robert Northway, once again, not comfortable into turn 1 at all. He's sliding the car the entire way through, and I'm wondering if early into this, section of stint for him, if he's just taken a little bit too much out of his tires already.
Yeah, I get the feeling that might be the case. I mean, Blake Neck's out of the race, we're hearing. Internet issues. That is actually a really big incident, because Blake was our GTE leader, so not good at all. Looks like he just came over to start lap 47, and out he went.
And there it is, it's official now. Blake Neck received throughput unacceptable, so that is a massive loss for Blake Neck. He was doing such a good job, was leading by a decent margin over Christopher Norton, and now it has all gone pear-shaped for him, which is a massive shame. No doubt he'll try and get into the session as soon as he can. He did have a little bit of a margin over a few off the cars, so if he can get back in, he might be able to scrape together just a few more positions to help out with him in the championship. But any chance of the race win has unfortunately just gone. Blake rejoins the session, but any second now, you're going to see Christopher Norton come across the line, and that is going to be your new effective GTE class leader.
Yeah, well, one thing that we got to think about with Norton is his incident count. We've been talking about it all race. 42 incident limit for this event, and when we last checked, Norton had 36. How many does he have now? 44. Well, that's an interesting number to come to. Probably not 100% accurate. If that were true, he would have been disqualified by now. Actually want to draw your attention to something that happened a little earlier, around the time that Blake Neck actually lost connection to the server. Christian Hinton on his lap 48 spun at turn 1. So he's not having a very good time either.
No, he's not, and it's a bit similar to what we were seeing a little bit earlier with Robert Northway, where the cars are getting very, very unsettled over the crest into braking for turn 1, and it just lost it just on turn into the main part of the corner. So, bit of a weird one. Didn't lose too much time, but would have overheated the tyres a bit and cost himself a good 6 or 7 seconds.
Got a replay of that now. And what we're seeing of Christian Hinton right now is that his front end is looking very sad.
Absolutely, it's not looking the prettiest, is it? But nonetheless, at least he's got a pretty even spread of damage. He's decided to bang up both the left and right side of the car, so at least the balance should be okay. It'll be terribly understeery, but at least it'll be balanced both ways.
Yeah, you don't want to pulling to the left or the right in a straight line, do you? That's called improvisational engineering. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, if you're going to break it, you might as well do the full job and get it both ways. So Christian Hinton, do it properly, of course. So Christian Hinton continues on his way, holding position number 4 at the moment. So doing a very nice job, and got a bit of a gap to the car in front and a bit of a gap to the car behind. So just kind of in his own little bit of track, which is what you want in one of these endurance races. Just run your own times, focus on your own tyre wear, and do the best you can. But at the moment, still all our DPs look to be relatively spread out. So it's just our GTs that are a little bit closer to each other. But the battle I was going to mention is just beginning to spread out as Rory Bird just beginning to lose touch with Daniel Stevens a little bit. Those two had a little bit of a decent scrap over the last few laps. But Rory Bird now just beginning to lose touch, which is a bit of a surprise to see. Of course, the Audi does look very, very strong in this current configuration of balance and performance. And the Merc, not a car I would particularly think would be quick around here with how hard it is on tyres and the massive load on tyres there is around this circuit. But nonetheless, Daniel Stevens doing the car well and getting a bit of a margin out. And just for confirmation, Blake Neck has in fact called it a day, which is a massive shame for him. And he will finish last in class, unfortunately, after what was such a promising day race.
Yeah, certainly. He was doing everything right up there at the front, and he looked to be taking a bit of a dominant win, really, in the GTE class. But, of course, Sim Racer's bane, internet issues, is what ultimately killed it for him, which is a real shame.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately, it's just one of the little issues we have to deal with here in sim racing, but nonetheless, Christian Hinton will take over that GT. Christopher Norton will take over the race lead, but Rory Bird is just beginning to get back to the gearbox of Daniel Stevens in that AMG. He had a very good run through the final few corners and had a bit of a lunge in the turn line. Was never going to work, but nonetheless, this battle might not be over so early as they head through this very fast section of track at the start. And this is where the Audi is going to be very, very strong. It's obviously mid-engine, so it's got very, very good rotation mid-corner, whereas the Merc likes to push a little bit. But when it gets to a straight, that Merc will run. But Rory Bird, already visually fast through this section of track, runs it out to the apex and is doing everything he can to close in on the AMG so he can get into that massive hole of air that will be behind the Merc when it goes down that straight.
Yes, indeed. Well, it looks like Daniel Stevens taking a much more direct line to the apex of that hairpin, and seems to have worked out well for him. That I think the thing that the Mercedes has over other GT3 cars is its launch out of the corners. It's got massive torque, and of course that front engine rear wheel drive configuration doesn't exactly harm things, and it seems like he's managing to keep Rory Boyd behind him at this stage at the very least, but we'll see what happens as the race gets further to the end. Boyd might have a couple of surprises up his sleeve as the aggression levels go up.
Yeah, absolutely, and aggression levels going up indeed they will. Of course, only 17 minutes left on the clock for our race leader. That should only be about 8 more laps when he crosses the line next time through, which he will do very, very shortly, just heading down the back straight now. But that's going to be very, very interesting to see if Rory Boyd has anything he can possibly throw at Daniel Stevens in what is one of the closer fights in your field at the moment. So these two trying to close in on one another around this very tough circuit, which is very hard to follow with the dirty air effect. But nonetheless, last time around, it was an 8-2 for the driver of Daniel Stevens, and it was an 8.5 for Rory Boyd. So he lost just a little bit more ground, but he's still trying. He's trying everything he can to possibly reel in that car in front, but it looks like this might be a dying fight for him, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see if he can get any closer in the next few laps, or potentially get the driver.
Hello. Yeah, Daniel Stevens hitting that sausage curb, and that has ruined the front of his car.
Oh no.
Oh dear, his speed is down quite a bit. Rory Boyd doesn't really have many places to go. That was a big hit. Full on smack of the sausage curb there.
Yep. We'll get a replay up on screen, but this might be a matter of when, not if, the driver Rory Boyd can get past, as Daniel Stevens misses the apex by about the entire length of Austin, Texas. But nonetheless, Rory Boyd in the slipstream now gets out of the way of the Corvette prototype of Jake Fox. Is currently running in P number 2, but the real battle is going to be in the GT3s as Rory Boyd gets into the slipstream of the Corvette, trying to get any advantage, and he dives to the inside aggressively, throws it up the inside of Daniel Stevens, and he's got the overlap right now, but it's going to be the inside for
the traction.
He's got very good traction, and he's going to hold that position if he can make the apex, which he does. So Stevens somehow holds on to that position. Did not think he would, but now he has a very tight line into the next few corners, whereas Rory Boyd can afford to open it up a lot more. As you can see, they're a much wider approach, but Daniel Stevens somehow, despite a horror start to the lap and creating a tinfoil mess of the front end of his Mercedes, somehow holds on to it, Reese.
Yeah, wow, that is incredible. We'll go back quickly and get a CPR Kart and Simbart's replay of what started that whole saga. Just incredible the amount that that Daniel Stevens went up in the air when he hit that sausage curb.
Yeah, they are not something you want to hit at all, and you saw the effect there. He just clipped it just a little bit, and he just turned into a Boeing 747 briefly.
Yeah, that's incredible stuff, but it seems like it hasn't done much race-defining damage to him. He's still able to keep Boyd behind. He's still managing to lap at what I suppose you would call a reasonable pace.
Yeah, he has, and he's actually got a bit of clean air now as Dwayne Burns splits up that battle just a little bit. As Rory Boyd gets held up a little bit. Now Dwayne Burns dives to the inside, but it still gives a little bit of margin to Daniel Stevens, so he might be okay down the straight this time around to defend Rory Boyd. If he can hook up his apexes a little bit tight there, which just gives a few more tenths advantage to Rory Boyd, who closes in just a little bit. But right now, Daniel Stevens should be okay on this lap, assuming he hits his marks, takes a very, very tight line, so he's not taking a wide approach anymore. Definitely not as wide as Rory Boyd, who doesn't quite make the apex. Daniel Stevens, his straight line speed does look okay, surprisingly, so he might have just about dodged the bullet.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there, Bo. It's actually looking reasonably okay for Daniel Stevens right now. Probably the shock of hitting one of those anti-cut devices, plus you know, the location of the track, location on the track. Sorry, you did say before that it was really a matter of keeping the flow through that first part of the circuit, and Stevens wasn't able to do that. But yeah, he's actually recovered from it fairly well. Meanwhile, lead in GTE is starting to look close.
Yeah, absolutely, and Larnack is on a charge. Set the fastest lap in class last time around, a 2-minute 0.6, so he is flying right now. And when you consider Christopher Norden did a 3.8, that is a massive margin for the driver of Scott Larnack right now. He is on a charge, and there's not many cars in the way of him and Norden right now. It's just a matter of a prototype and Jason Martin in the Audi R8. So for Scott Larnack, once he can get past this GT3 car, which he does now, free of charge, headlights flashing, he's free to chase down Christopher Norden, as Daniel Benefield, actually a race leader, dives into the pits for what will be his final time.
Yes, and we did hear from Performance Sim Sports in the broadcast chat that Benefield will be doing one of two things, stopping once more or fuel saving. Looks like he is stopping once more, so it is impossible. It is proven to to fuel save in this race, of course, without a hefty pace penalty. So this is just going to be a splash and dash for Daniel Benefield. He's only we've only got what, how many minutes left in the race? Anywhere from 11 to 13, judging by my clock, 11. So Benefield is out with an incredibly short pit stop, no tires, just enough fuel to make it to the end, and he is back out.
I'm surprised the pit stop was that short for Daniel Benefield, because about this, you know, with how big his race lead is, he could probably have afforded to have ordered a McDonald's sundae or something at that point with a use, but we do know that sometimes it can be a little bit inaccurate. I know I finished an official race once with 3 incidents, and GRT said I had amassed over 1,000, which was pretty impressive, I must say. But nonetheless, we'll see if Christopher Norton does indeed have to play things safe, because if he does have to play things safe and he doesn't have many incidents up his sleeve, if Larnack does get to the back of him, he's not going to be able to...
Watching with bated breath as Robert Northway makes his way past Scott Larnack, and we're seeing more and more smoke being kicked up around the circuit. I noticed Norton in the second hairpin had a bit of a slide on the way in, or a locked brake, whichever. Either way, it did result in a little bit of a loss of pace down the straight, and we're starting to see that fatigue set in, especially with some of the drivers here doing double duty after racing in the Oceanic Endurance Championship. Fatigue really does come into it in races like this that are 2 hours or more in length.
Yeah, it really does, and you really start to feel it when, you know, you see you've got 10 more laps, 10 more minutes left in the race, and you're thinking, okay, you know, it's only 6 more laps. Those 6 laps feel like an eternity, and it's really where, you know, you get to test how mentally tough a driver is in these final few laps, especially when there's a driver, you know, they're chasing down like Rory Boyd is right now in GT3, still hunting down Daniel Stevens. Those two are quite close at the moment, with also Christian Hinton and Jake Fox. So you have 2 battles happening all at once. Happening at once is Christian Hinton! Tries to go around the outside, can't do it, spins himself, and goodbye 3rd position.
Ouch! Goodness me, what happened there? Was that just avoiding action?
That was, I think, Christian Hinton knowing he had, the driver behind, really attacking him, so he knew he had to be opportunistic through traffic, and he just went for an opportunity that was never there.
I don't know. I disagree, Bo. I'm taking a look at that incident again, and it just looks to me like he wasn't anticipating who was it? Daniel Stevens to go as wide as he did. So the gap that should have been there no longer was, and he simply went to take that avoiding action right off the circuit.
Rory Boyd dives it down to the inside and finally gets the move done on Daniel Stevens.
There we go.
Daniel Stevens, do you have anything to respond with? Rory Boyd, very defensive into the next corner, makes a very tight line for himself, but will be okay for now. But will Daniel Stevens try anything into the next corner? Rory Boyd so tight on the apex once again. And that's going to hurt him, but Daniel Stevens could not get the rotation. And now the GTE lead is even closer again.
Yeah.
Scott Larnack is there. It's not a matter of catching him anymore. He's there.
Yeah, both of them going off the track in their pursuit of each other. This is going to be a very interesting finish between these GTE drivers. I am actually feeling rather optimistic about the chances of a super exciting finish here. Larnack going very deep.
Almost into the back, and that's going to open the door for Shane Bowen. Shane Bowen sneaks through into position number 5. So Shane Bowen picks up that position. That was Robert Northway, not quite expecting where the GTEs would break. But he's going to have to go for it as Larnack dives to the inside. So late on the brakes, Christian Norton leaves the room. Almost contact off the track goes Norton. It's going to be Ford versus Ferrari through the right-hander, and Larnack around the outside takes the lead of GTE with just 5 minutes left on the clock. But Norton is still there. This is not over yet.
No, certainly not. It's up to Norton now to try and maybe sit behind Larnack for a bit, figure out what he's doing, and figure out a way to attack him as they make their way past Daniel Stevens. And Stevens going very slow to let those battling Daytona prototypes by. Northway versus Bowen is not over yet either. This is really awesome as they come onto the back stretch at Coda once again. For one of the final times in the race, Northway, big oversteer on the exit of the hairpin, so he's lost traction and that is going to be Shane Bowen making his way through on Norton. Won't be able to make his way past Larnack, I wouldn't think.
Well, if he goes for it, which he's thinking about it but doesn't commit to it, that could have really hurt Larnack if he was sitting on the apex there. It would have allowed Norton just to close in just a little bit, but Shane Bowen being very, very patient with these GTEs, you know, a fair speed difference between the two of them as Bowen lights it up on the rear tyres out of the traction zone and still can't find a way past Larnack. So Bowen being held up just a little bit, but at the same time, Robert Northway, who he is fighting, not having any luck either. So it's GTE from DP from GTE from DP, so a bit of a weird train happening. But finally, it does look like the driver is going to get...
Oh dear! No! There we go. That's contact. Big contact between Bowen and Larnack. That's not going to work out well here.
And that's close both battles up.
Yeah, it certainly has. So Bowen with big damage and Larnack not happy at all with what transpired there. And now Norton is going to have another shot at the lead of this race in the GTE class. They're making their way past Rory Boyd here.
Oh, this is going to get potentially messy. Larnack is well and truly going to get held up here on the outside, but Norton's not going to be able to take advantage. So Rory Boyd gets out of the way very nicely in the end. But look how nicely that has closed both battles. Northway close to the back of Bowen, and I don't have to tell you how close the gap is between Norton and Larnack, because the gap is right there. And Norton is going to have a very nice slipstream down this next straight.
Yeah, they're taking pointers from Ubo with the headlight flashing over that last half a lap. That's, I don't think I think all 4 cars in that battle flashed their lights at some point.
Oh, Norton, that might have hurt you a little bit. He was closing very quickly on the back of Larnack.
He's losing it. And he's losing it.
Absolutely, he is not making the ground he needed to, and that was going to be a very good opportunity because Larnack didn't get that corner perfectly either. So if Norton hooked it up, he would have had a very nice run, but he mucked it up even more himself. So Larnack holds on for one more lap, but the clock is still ticking and the race is far from over yet.
Yeah, certainly. We only have less than a lap remaining on the clock, but that's a pretty long time around a track like Circuit of the Americas. 5.5 kilometers long.
Hinton is very slow, and Christian Hinton is letting drivers through.
Oh, that is interesting. What is going on here?
Fuel issue? Potentially?
He must be short on fuel. Must be.
Because he is extremely slow right now, and he's going to dive straight for the pit lane to top up. So he has realized at the last second this race is going to go a lap or two longer than he expected. And that is 4th position for him, gone completely. But that just gives a bit more incentive for Robert Northway to hunt down Shane Bowen. Those two are still very, very close to each other. If Northway can find a way past, it's no longer just getting to 5th place. That's now a 4th place, which is very, very good points.
Yeah, certainly is. And, you know, I think from the perspective of Hinton, I think he was attempting to make a bit of a fuel-saving strategy work, but just unable to do it. So that means that he is going to have to deal with coming home in second last place in class, which is a bit of a shame. He was actually running quite well for much of the race.
Yeah, he certainly was. He was doing a really, really nice job, and you know, he was in for a big haul of points, but nonetheless, it hasn't quite worked out with him, so he's going to be stuck down in 6th position, which is still a very, very good result in the field, and how strong it is here today at the Circuit of the Americas. But nonetheless, it hasn't worked out, and Christopher Norton hasn't got a good run either onto this straight, and so Larnack looks like he's put a bit of a margin, and this will be the last lap for those guys, because just behind them, heading down the straight, is your prototype race leader, Daniel Benefield, on his final lap, the clock with 13 seconds to go. What a race he has driven today. Races out down the inside, potentially. Norton thought about it. That was a last gasp dive. He knew it was the last lap. He knew that was for the race win, and Benefield is going to go past him now and say, you've had your fun, but it's going to be 2nd place for you today.
Yep, certainly. That is a real shame for Norton after the drive that he's had. It was really good, actually. He was able to stay with Blake Neck in the first part of the race and hold the race lead for quite some time. But Larnack just coming through in the dying minutes of the race to take that lead Very well done from Larnack, and well done from Daniel Benefield as well. Completely dominant victory here today at the Circuit of the Americas. So Daniel Benefield wins Daytona Prototype in the Sportscar Showdown. Scott Larnack is going to win in GTE. And just up ahead, Benjamin Hackison, your GT3 leader, still has yet to complete his final lap. Jason, Daniel Stevens?
Where's Daniel Stevens gone?
Ooh, okay.
So, I'll try and follow up where that has happened for Daniel Stevens, but out of nowhere, he has disappeared from our timing screens.
That's been a while. That was a while ago, actually. That was...
Yeah, lap 54, and he's just run straight off the track, and, yep, immediately after, he's gone. That's an incident count.
Yep. Well, that's a real shame for Daniel Stevens. He had a bit of an up and down race, he did, but at the end of the day... Oh, just hearing from Scott Larnack that he ran out of fuel on the last corner.
Wow. Oh boy, Scotty.
So, he was really cutting it fine there, wasn't he?
Yeah, I did notice he was quite slow out of the final corner, but didn't suspect that. But very, very lucky the race did not go one lap longer for Scotty Larnack, but somehow managed to take the win. And Jason Martin comes home second in GT3, and he's going to complete 57 laps. But amazingly, because of where the traffic is finished and everything, Benjamin Hackson on his last lap is going to finish an entire lap ahead of the GT3 field. Of course, his drive wasn't quite that dominant, but still nonetheless a fantastic drive and class of the field today, Reese.
Yeah, certainly. He was completely untouchable in GT3 from the moment the green flag fell. And you know, from the UK, I have known Ben Hackison for a while. I remember racing with him back in the R Factor days a few years back, and since moving to iRacing, he's just proven himself to be in a class of his own in terms of pace. So Benjamin Hackison crossing the finish line in style. He wins GT3 in the Sportscar Showdown.
Fantastic drive, and what a race. 2 hours is very, very tough around COTA, so everyone who finished today should be very, very proud. But what we might do is run you through our race results, and in your prototype field, it will be Daniel Benefield taking the outright victory, 1 minute and 10 seconds ahead of second place Dwayne Burns, with Jake Fox celebrating, doing burnouts for his podium in position number 3. Shane Bowen comes home in P4 with Robert Northway, Christian Hinton, and Brett Loxton rounding out your prototypes.
Scott Larnack takes the win in GTE with Christopher Norton in second. Dean Moll finishes in third place. Alexander Sheridan, Adam McLeod, and Gavin Barber complete your finishes in the GTE field. Unfortunately, Blake Neck, your only retiree in that class with internet dramas.
Yeah, very unfortunate there for Blake Neck, but no dramas at all for Benjamin Hackson, who takes the victory, technically a lap ahead of Jason Martin in position number 2 in your GT3s. Trevor Mack rounds out the podium with P3. John King rounds out P4 with Rory Boyd completing the top 5. Gary LaViolette in P number 6. Jonathan Ben and Daniel Stevens round out your finishes in what was a fantastic race here, Reese.
Yeah, certainly. And Griffin Gardner, your only retiree in the Daytona Prototype class. I tell you what, that race was a slow burner. Got a while to get going, but when it did, it was quite good. I really enjoyed that. And in the commentary box with us right now, we have our Daytona Prototype winner, Daniel Benefield. Daniel, you've made it a 2 for today. First OEC and now this. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go and reward myself with a nice sleep and a nice cup of tea.
That sounds like a good enough reward for me. I need another cup of tea as well after the day that I've had. So, oh man, but really, this race was quite an interesting one from the Daytona Prototypes perspective. Pit stops. You needed to make 2 of them. Did you ever consider fuel saving as a viable race strategy, as was implied by your team manager in the broadcast chat?
Yes and no, but I figured to say that's a stint. That's a lot of fuel. A lot of fuel.
Yeah.
I think it was something in the like 18 liters or something like that. And it was just no.
Yeah.
Like
certainly.
Like I tried doing one LMS race this week with fuel saving to do a one stop, and it was horrible. And I didn't really want to do 2 hours of fuel saving.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that, but man, it was quite a slow burner as me and Bo were just discussing. It was a bit of a shame about your teammate too, Griffin Gardner, unfortunately falling ill during the race. Do you have any other details on that?
Not really. Like, I was kind of. He didn't sound great when we were talking before the start. So I'm not sure if it was like just the mix of doing OEC in this, or whether he's eaten something bad or something. But yeah, like he just fell ill. Um, as I said, he didn't sound great before the start, but I'd say as the race went on, he slowly got worse, and yeah, eventually decided to park it. I think iRacing turned from a racing simulator into a Mark Webber 2007 Japanese Grand Prix simulator for him.
Oh yes, and those in the know will definitely know what that means. Well, either way, Daniel, it was the fourth round of the Majors series. The next round is the 2.4 hours of Nürburgring, and you're looking forward to that?
I kind of am, because I think the international time slot for that race is when I'm in Sydney for IEM Sydney. So I think I'm going to have to do the Pacific time zone for that one in a few weeks' time.
All right, awesome stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining us once again in the commentary box, Daniel Benefield, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you again at some point in the future. If not for the next round of the Majors, then the next round of OEC.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which one's first. I think it's Majors first. But yeah, maybe if we can get Jay, nudge Jay to do a Thursday night broadcast of LMS, you might see me a bit more often.
No, that just gets a flat no from our director.
That's a nut. At least I tried.
Thank you very much for joining us, Daniel, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking with the race, and it would have been a really slow one.
All right, well, that was Daniel Benefield for Performance Sim Sports, your Daytona prototype winner. Now we come to the GTE winner, Scott Larnack. Scott, you came from what was basically nowhere to win that race after a couple of incidents earlier on. You ran out of fuel out of the last corner. Was that how tight it was?
Oh, that wasn't even the start of it.
Take us through it.
Where do you start? Sleeping off the line for some reason. I thought it was a rolling start, so I was caught off guard then, and then it just took me a little while to get in a rhythm, and then hit obviously the sleepy log and spun me around and lost my rhythm. Had to get back in a rhythm again, and then pit stops back into rhythm, and it's unfortunate for Blake there. He had pretty good pace. For his dropout, and just had to keep my head down. And I think when I saw him drop out, it gave me a little bit extra motivation to try and punch out some laps, and did that.
Did you anticipate that you would win?
Nope.
That battle between you and Christopher Norton at the end certainly got heated in a few places. It was quite interesting from our perspective. What about from you? Did you know that you would run out of fuel on the last lap?
Probably the last sort of 10 liters of fuel, I think it was. Must have been the last sort of 4 or 5 laps. I was getting a little bit antsy. I think the second last lap I was lifting and coasting, which obviously if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have made the cross the line. So and then I had a hairy moment with a prototype, a DP there on the second last lap as well. So just sort of a bit of unluck, and then all luck came my way towards the end, I think.
Well then, I suppose you're more than happy to come away with a maximum haul of championship points for a class win in this round of the majors. But we're back to single class for the next round of the series, the 2.4 hours of Nürburgring. And, well, it's GT3 cars. It's a field where Evolution Racing Team it has quite a degree of familiarity. So what are your thoughts going into the next round of the series?
True. I unfortunately will not be here, but I will fortunately be in Japan. So just on a bit of a holiday, a bit of a break. So yeah, I wish the guys all the luck in trying to grab some points. I know Bo's a bit of a specialist, aren't you, Bo?
Try to be more of a failure into the concrete in turn 1, but we'll see.
As long as those headlights are flashing, mate.
Always will. Awesome drive tonight, Scotty, and well done on the win.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that was your GTE winner, Scott Larnack from Evolution Racing Team. Bo, Cam, that was wow. The finish of that race was certainly worth the slow burning wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It ended up being a cracking final 15 minutes of the race, and sometimes you do have to wait for things to come good, and tonight they definitely did, and then proved to be an awesome race. But a bit of action in the first hour would have been brilliant, but nonetheless, still a very, very good watch.
Yes, indeed. Well, then, I suppose on that note, it is time for us to say goodbye. It's been a big day here on V8's Online, but it's certainly been well spent. Reminder that the next round of the majors is on the weekend of April the 29th, May 6th for the international region. So keep that in mind, and we will be live on V8's Online for that. The 2.4 hours of Nürburgring with all the GT3 cars driving around the amazing Nordschleife. Who will win the Mario Andretti Trophy at the end of this Majors series? It's a long road, but we're about to come to the next bend in it. You've been watching the international split of the Majors series here on V8's Online, the Sportscar Showdown from the Circuit of the Americas. Class winners were Daniel Benefield, Scott Larnack, and Benjamin Hackerson. We'll see you next time.